Hello. It is I, your host, Collie Mortwood, and we are live. That was me stalling to make sure that we're actually live. I feel like this is too bright again. Why? I'm trying to murder myself with the light. Happy Tuesday. Welcome everyone to our 35th episode, which I think is absolutely wild. I don't keep up with anything this consistently, so really proud of myself for that. And we're just gonna carry on, shall we? And also I put a little pencil mark last time so we could start right where we stopped. Where are we? What happened last? Does anyone remember? Okay. Blah 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 blah. You said two kinds of treasure, said Hustings. What's the other? Ebenezer Boulder picked up the black-edged card, held it out for his friend's inspection. Do you know what this is? His friend shook his head. Ebenezer put the card down on the counter. There's a party looking for another party. There's a party is looking for another party. So? The way I heard it, said Ebenezer Boulder, the other party is a boy. There's boys everywhere, said Tom Hustings. Running all around, getting into trouble. I can't abide them. So there's a party looking for a particular boy. This lad looks to be the right age. He's dressed. Oh, that's right. Well, you'll see how he's dressed. And he found this. It could be him. And if it is him... Ebenezer Boulder picked up the card again by the edge and waved it back and forth, slowly, as if running the edge along an imaginary flame. Here comes a candle to light you to bed, he began. And here comes a chopper to chop off your head, concluded Tom Hustings thoughtfully. But look you, if we call the man Jack, we lose the boy. And if we lose the boy, we lose the treasure. And the two men went back and forth on it, weighing the merits and disadvantages of reporting the boy, or of collecting the treasure, which had grown in their minds to a huge underground cavern filled with precious things. And as they debated, Ebenezer pulled a bottle of sloe gin from beneath the counter and poured them both a generous tot to assist their celebrations. Liza was soon bored with their discussion, which went back and forth and around like a whirligig, getting nowhere, and so she went back into the storeroom to find Bod standing in the middle of the room with his eyes tightly closed, and his fists clenched and his face all screwed up as if he had a toothache, almost purple from holding his breath. What you doing now? She asked, unimpressed. He opened his eyes and relaxed. Trying to fade, he said. Liza sniffed. Try again, she said. He did, holding his breath even longer this time. Stop that, she told him, or you'll pop. Bod took a deep breath and then sighed. It doesn't work, he said. Maybe I could hit him with a rock and just run for it. There wasn't a rock, so he picked up a colored glass paperweight, hefted it in his hand, wondering if he could throw it hard enough to stop Ebenezer Boulder in his tracks. All right, I hear you. I'm coming. Doing this. Hello, you. Okay. We're facing the other way. There's two of them out there now, said Liza. And if the one don't get you, t'other will. They say they want to get you to show them where you got the brooch, and then dig up the grave and take the treasure. She did not tell him about the other discussions they were having, nor about the black-edged card. She shook her head. Why did you do something stupid as this anyway? You know the rules about leaving the graveyard. Just asking for trouble it was. Bod felt very insignificant and very foolish. I wanted to get you a headstone, he admitted, in his small voice, and I thought it would cost more money. So I was going to sell him the brooch to buy you one. She didn't say anything. Are you angry? She shook her head. It's the first nice thing anyone's done for me in 500 years, she said with a hint of a goblin smile. Why would I be angry? Then she said, what do you do when you try to fade? Mr. Pennyworth told me. I am an empty doorway. I am a vacant alley. I am nothing. Eyes will not see me. Glances slip over me. But it never works. It's because you're alive, said Liza with a sniff. This stuff as works for us, the dead, who have to fight to be noticed as the best of times. That won't never work for people. She hugged herself tightly, moving her body back and forth as if she was debating something. Then she said, It's because of me you got into this. Come here, Nobody Owens. He took a step towards her in that tiny room, and she put her cold hand on his forehead. It felt like a wet silk scarf against his skin. Now, she said, perhaps I can do a good turn for you. And with that she began to mutter to herself, mumbling words that Bod could not make out. Then she said clear and loud, Be whole, be dust, be dream, be wind, be night, be dark, be wish, be mind. Now slip, now slide, now move unseen, above, beneath, betwixt, between. Something huge touched him, brushed him from head to feet, and he shivered. His hair prickled, and his skin was all goose flesh. Something had changed. What did you do? He asked. Just give you a helping hand, she said. I may be dead, but I'm a dead witch, remember? And we don't forget. But, hush up, she said. They're coming back. The key rattled in the storeroom lock. Now then, chummy, said a voice Bod had not heard clearly before. I'm sure we're all going to be great friends. And with that, Tom Hustings pushed open the door. Then he stood in the doorway looking around, looking puzzled. He was a big, big man with foxy red hair and a bottle red nose. Here, Ebenezer? I thought you said he was in here. I did, said Bulger from behind. Well, I can't see him, hide nor hair of him. Bulger's face appeared behind the ruddy man's, and he peered into the room. Hiding, he said, staring straight at where Bod was standing. No use hiding, he announced loudly. I can see you there. Come on out. The two men walked into the little room, and Bod stood stock still between them and thought of Mr. Pennyworth's lessons. He did not react. He did not move. He let the men's glances slide from without seeing him. You distracted me. I love you. You're going to wish you'd come out when I called, said Bulger, and he shut the door. Right, he said to Tom Hustings. You block the door so he can't get past. And with that he walked around the room, peering behind things and bending awkwardly to look beneath the desk. He walked straight past Bod and opened the cupboard. Now I see you, he shouted. Come out. Liza giggled. What was that? Asked Tom Hustings, spinning around. I didn't hear nothing, said Ebenezer Bulger. Liza giggled again, but then she put her lips together and blew, making a noise that began as a whistling and then sounded like a distant wind. The electric lights in the little room flickered and buzzed. Then they went out. Bloody fuses, said Ebenezer Bulger. Come on, this is a waste of time. The key clicked in the lock, and Liza and Bod were left alone in the room. He's got away, said Ebenezer Bulger. Bod could hear him now through the door. Room like that, there wasn't any way he could have been hiding. We'd have seen him if he was. The man Jack won't like that. No. Well, who's going to tell him? A pause. Here, Tom Hustings, where's the brooch gone? That? Here. I was keeping it safe. Keeping it safe? In your pocket? Funny place to be keeping it safe, if you ask me. More like you were planning to make off with it. Like you was planning to keep my brooch for your own. Your brooch, Ebenezer? Your brooch? Our brooch, you mean? Ours, indeed. I don't remember you being here when I got it from that boy. That boy that you couldn't even keep safe for the man Jack, you mean? Do you imagine what he'll do when he finds you had the boy he was looking for, and you let him go? Probably not the same boy. Lots of boys in the world. What's the odds it was the one he's looking for? Out the back door, as soon as my back was turned, I'll bet. And then Ebenezer Bolger said in a high, wheedling voice, Don't you worry about the man Jack, Tom Hustings. I'm sure that it was a different boy, my own mind playing tricks, and we're almost out of slow gin. How would you fancy a good Scotch? I've got whiskey in the back room. You just wait here a moment. The storeroom door was unlocked, and Ebenezer entered holding a walking stick and a flashlight, looking even more sour of face than before. If you're still in here, he said in a sour mutter, don't even think of making a run for it. I've called the police on you, that's what I've done. A rummage in a drawer produced the half-filled bottle of whiskey, and then a tiny black bottle. Ebenezer poured several drops from the little bottle into the larger, then he pocketed the tiny bottle. My brooch, and mine alone, he muttered, and followed it with a barked, Just coming, Tom. He glared around the dark room, staring past Bod, then he left the storeroom, carrying the whiskey in front of him. He locked the door behind him. Here you go, came Ebenezer Bolger's voice through the door. Give us your glass then, Tom. Nice drop of Scotch. Puts hairs on your chest. Say when. Silence. Cheap muck. Aren't you drinking? That slow gin gone to my innards. Give it a minute for my stomach to settle. Then, here, Tom, what have you done with my brooch? Your brooch, is it now? What did you... You put something in my drink, you little grub. What if I did? I could read on your face what you was planning, Tom Hastings. Thief! And then there was shouting, and several crashes, and loud bangs, as if heavy items of furniture were being overturned. Then, silence. Liza said, Quickly now, let's get you out of here. Just want to shut the door. Okay. Where were we? Liza said, Quickly now, let's get you out of here. But the door's locked, he looked at her. Is there something you can do? Me? I don't have any magics that will get you out of a locked room, boy. Bod crouched and peered out through the keyhole. It was blocked. The key sat in the keyhole. Bod thought. Then he smiled momentarily, and it lit his face like the flash of a light bulb. He pulled a crumpled sheet of newspaper from a packing case, flattened it out as best as he could, then pushed it underneath the door, leaving only a corner on his side of the doorway. What are you playing at? Asked Liza impatiently. I need something, like a pencil, only thinner, he said. Here we go. And he took a thin paintbrush from the top of the desk and pushed the bristles into the lock, jiggled it, and pushed some more. There was a muffled clunk as the key was pushed out, as it dropped from the lock onto the newspaper. Bod pulled the paper back under the door, now with the key sitting on it. Liza laughed, delighted. That's wit, young man, she said. That's wisdom. Bod put the key in the lock, turned it, and pushed open the storeroom door. There were 2 men on the floor in the middle of the crowded antique shop. Furniture had indeed fallen. The place was a chaos of wrecked clocks and chairs, and in the midst of it the bulk of Tom Hustings lay, fallen on the smaller figure of Ebenezer Bolger. Neither of them was moving. Are they dead? Asked Bod. No such look, said Liza. On the floor beside the men was a brooch of glittering silver, a crimson-orange banded stone, held in place with claws and with snake heads, and the expression on the snake heads was one of triumph and avarice and satisfaction. Bod dropped the brooch into his pocket, where it sat beside the heavy glass paperweight, the paintbrush, and the little pot of paint. Take this too, said Liza. Bod looked at the black-edged card with the word Jack handwritten on one side. It disturbed him. There was something familiar about it, something that stirred old memories, something dangerous. I don't want it. You can't leave it here with them, said Liza. They were going to use it to hurt you. I don't want it, said Bod. It's bad. Burn it. Ugh. No, Liza gasped. Don't do that. You mustn't do that. Then I'll give it to Silas, said Bod. And he put the little card into an envelope so he had to touch it as little as possible and put the envelope into the inside of his old gardening jacket beside his heart. 200 miles away, the man Jack woke from his sleep and sniffed the air. He walked downstairs. What is it? Asked his grandmother, stirring the contents of a big iron pot on the stove. What's got into you now? I don't know, he said. Something's happening. Something interesting. And then he licked his lips. Smells tasty. Very tasty. Lightning illuminated the cobbled street. Bod hurried through the rain through the old town, always heading up the hill toward the graveyard. The gray day had become an early night while he was inside the storeroom, and it came as no surprise to him when a familiar shadow swirled beneath the street lamps. Bod hesitated, and a flutter of night-black velvet resolved itself into a man shape. Night-black velvet resolved itself into a man shape. I love it. Silas stood in front of him, arms folded. He strode forward impatiently. Whoa, he said. Bod said, I'm sorry, Silas. I'm disappointed in you, Bod, Silas said, and he shook his head. I've been looking for you since I woke. You have the smell of trouble all around you. And you know you're not allowed to go out here, into the living world. I know. I'm sorry. There was rain on the boy's face, running down like tears. First of all, we need to get you back to safety. Silas reached down and enfolded the living child inside his cloak, and Bod felt the ground fall away beneath him. Silas? He said. Silas did not answer. I was a bit scared, he said. But I knew you'd come and get me if it got too bad. And Liza was there. She helped a lot. Liza? Silas's voice was sharp. The witch from the Potter's Field. And you say she helped you? Yes, she especially helped me with my fading. I think I can do it now. Silas grunted. You can tell me all about it when we're home. And Bod was quiet until they landed beside the chapel. And then they went inside, into the empty hall as the rain redoubled, splashing up from the puddles that covered the ground. Bod produced the envelope containing the black-edged card. He said, I thought you should have this. Well, Liza did, really. Silas looked at it. Then he opened it, removed the card, stared at it, turned it over, and read Ebenezer Bolger's penciled note to himself in tiny handwriting, explaining the precise manner of use of the card. Tell me everything, he said. Bod told him everything he could remember about the day, and at the end Silas shook his head, slowly, thoughtfully. Am I in trouble? Asked Bod. Nobody, Owens, said Silas. You are indeed in trouble. However, I believe I shall leave it to your parents to administer whatever discipline and reproach they believe to be needed. In the meantime, I need to dispose of this. The black-edged card vanished inside the velvet cloak, and then, in the manner of his kind, Silas was gone. Bod pulled the jacket up over his head and clambered up the slippery paths to the top of the hill, to the Frobisher mausoleum. He pulled aside Ephraim Pettifer's coffin, and he went down, and still farther down. He replaced the brooch beside the goblet and the knife. Here you go, he said. All polished up, looking pretty. It comes back, said the Sleer, with satisfaction in its smoke tendril voice. It always comes back. It had been a long night. Bod was walking sleepily and a little gingerly past the small tomb of the wonderfully named Miss Liberty Roach. What she spent is lost, what she gave remains with her always. Reader, be charitable. Past the final resting place of Harrison Westwood, baker of this parish, and his wives, Marion and Joan, to the Potter's Field. Mr. and Mrs. Owens had died several hundred years before it had been decided that beating children was wrong, and Mr. Owens had regretfully, that night, done what he saw as his duty, and Bod's bottom stung like anything. Oh, poor Bod. Still, the look of worry on Mrs. Owens' face had hurt Bod worse than any beating could have done. He reached the iron railings that bounded the Potter's Field and slipped between them. "Hello?" he called. There was no answer, not even an extra shadow in the hawthorn tree. "I hope I didn't get you into trouble, too," he said. Nothing. He had replaced the jeans in the gardener's hut. He was more comfortable in just his gray winding sheet, but he had kept the jacket. He liked having the pockets. When he had gone to the shed to return the jeans, he had taken a small hand scythe from the wall where it hung, and with it he had tacked the nettle patch in the Potter's Field, sending the nettles flying, slashing and gutting them till there was nothing but stinging stubble on the ground. From his pocket he took the large glass paperweight, its insides a multitude of bright colors, along with the paint pot and the paint brush. He dipped the brush into the paint and carefully painted in brown paint on the surface of the paperweight the letters. And E.H. And beneath them he wrote, "We don't forget." Oh, Bod! And look! Here it is. So cute. Bedtime soon, and it would not be wise for him to be late to bed for some time to come. He put the paperweight down on the ground that had once been a nettle patch, placed it in the place that he estimated her head would have been, and pausing only to look at his handiwork for a moment, he went through the railings and made his way, rather less gingerly, back up the hill. "Not bad," said a pert voice from the Potter's Field behind him. "Not bad at all." But when he turned to look, there was no one there. How fun! Now, let's see. That was the conclusion of Chapter 4, and we are now about to begin Chapter 5. Let's see how many pages it is. Too many to count. Let's go. Chapter 5, Danse Macabre. And here we have a picture of a young lad looking up quite thoughtfully. Is that stars? What are we looking at? Something was going on. Bod was certain of it. It was there in the crisp winter air, in the stars, in the wind, in the darkness. It was there in the rhythms of the long nights and the fleeting days. Mistress Owens pushed him out of the Owens' little tomb. "Get along with you," she said. "I've got business to attend to." Bod looked at his mother. "But it's cold out there," he said. "I should hope so," she said, "it being winter." "That's as it should be. Now," she said, more to herself than to Bod, "shoes. And look at this dress. It needs hemming. And cobwebs. There are cobwebs all over, for heaven's sake. You get along." This to Bod once more. "I've plenty to be getting on with, and I don't need you underfoot." And then she sang to herself a little couplet that Bob had never heard before. "Rich man, poor man, come away, come to dance the macabre." It rhymes. I like it. Y'all know how I feel about songs or verse. You ask me to sing a song and it doesn't even rhyme. You know how I feel about that. "What's that?" asked Bod, but it was the wrong thing to have said, for Mistress Owens looked dark as a thundercloud, and Bod hurried out of the tomb before she could express her displeasure more forcefully. It was cold in the graveyard, cold and dark, and the stars were already out. Bod passed Mother Slaughter in the ivy-covered Egyptian walk, squinting at the greenery. "Your eyes are younger than mine, young man," she said. "Can you see blossom?" "Blossom? In winter?" "Don't you look at me with that face on, young man," she said. "Things blossom in their time. They bud and bloom, blossom and fade. everything in its time. She huddled deeper into her cloak and bonnet, and she said, "Time to work and time to play. Time to dance the macabre. Eh, boy?" "I don't know," said Bod. "What's the macabre?" But Mother Slaughter had pushed into the ivy and was gone from sight. "How odd," said Bod aloud. He sought warmth and company in the bustling Bartleby mausoleum, but the Bartleby family, 7 generations of them, had no time for him that night. They were cleansing and tidying, all of them, from the oldest, date 1831, to the youngest, date 1690. Fortinobras Bartleby, 10 years old when he had died of consumption, he had told Bod, who had mistakenly believed for several years that Fortinbras had been eaten by lions or bears, and was extremely disappointed to learn it was merely a disease. He now apologized to Bod. "We cannot stop to play, Master Bod, for soon enough tomorrow night comes, and how often can a man say that?" "Every night," said Bod. "Tomorrow night always comes." "Not this one," said Fortinbras. "Not once in a blue moon or a month of Sundays." "It's not Guy Fawkes night," said Bod, "or Halloween. It's not Christmas or New Year's Day." Fortinbras smiled, a huge smile that filled his pie-shaped, freckly face with joy. "None of them," he said. "This one's special." "Well, what's it called?" asked Bod. "What happens tomorrow?" "It's the best day," said Fortinbras. And Bod was certain he would have continued, but his grandmother, Louisa Bartleby, who was only 20, called him over to her and said something sharply in his ear. "Nothing," said Fortinbras. Then to Bod, "Sorry, I have to work now." And he took a rag and he began to buff the side of his dusty coffin with it. "La, la, la, oomph! La, 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 oomph!" he sang, and with each oomph he would do a wild whole-body flourish with his rag. "Aren't you going to sing that song?" "What song? The one everybody's singing?" "No time for that," said Fortinbras. "It's tomorrow. Tomorrow, after all." "No time," said Louisa, who had died in childbirth, giving birth to twins. "Be about your business." And her sweet, clear voice, she sang, "One and all will hear and stay, come and dance the macabre." Bod walked down to the crumbling little church. He slipped between the stones and into the crypt, where he sat and waited for Silas to return. He was cold, true, but the cold did not bother Bod. Not really. The graveyard embraced him, and the dead do not mind the cold. His guardian returned in the small hours of the morning. He had a large plastic bag with him. "What's in there?" "Clothes. For you. Try them on." Silas produced a gray sweater, the color of Bod's winding sheet, a pair of jeans, underwear, and shoes, pale green sneakers. "What are they for?" "You mean, apart from wearing? Well, firstly, I think you're old enough. What are you, 10 years old now? And normal living people, clothes are wise. You'll have to wear them one day, so why not pick up the habit now? And they could also be camouflage." "What's camouflage?" "Something that looks enough like something else that people watching don't know what it is they're looking at." "Oh, I see. I think." Bod put the clothes on. The shoelaces gave him a little trouble, and Silas had to teach him how to tie them. It seemed remarkably complicated to Bod, and he had to tie and retie his laces several times before he had done it to Silas's satisfaction. Only then did Bod dare to ask his question. "Silas, what's a macabre?" Silas's eyebrows raised, and his head tipped to one side. "Where did you hear about that?" said Silas. We're going to stop there because that takes us right up to 30 minutes. I guess we're not going to know what a macabre is until next week. I have no idea where this chapter ends. Neil, I adore you, but why are your chapters so long? Oh, there it is. Oh, it is a long one. Anyway, yes, there we are. 30 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me for our 35th episode of Tuesday Tales of Terror. Terror. The terror in the deep. And I would love to see you next week for our 36th episode. 36. 9 months. Long enough to have a Tuesday Tales of Terror birthed child. Anyway. And with that, I bid you ciao. As always, stay spooky. A little peace. A little love. Where am I going? A little peace and love. Have a beautiful night. I love you.